Alethea Ganaway is a talented program manager. Alethea credits her parents for her spark in the world of STEM, her mother a teacher and her father a civil engineer. Her father helped her pave the way of success today.
My name is Alethea Ganaway. I am the program manager at Tri-C for our Additive Manufacturing Program in our Ideation Station.
And what's your educational background?
So that's very diverse. I actually have 4 degrees. I have 2 undergrads from KIT, one in history and one in architecture. And then I also have 2 masters from Cleveland State, one in history and one in urban planning, design, and development. And then for the additive manufacturing, I know for the additive manufacturing portion, I actually hold the additive manufacturing fundamentals certificate given out by SME.
Wow, sound like you like school.
I do. I'm actually going back.
Another major?
So I said I was only going to do 2 more. I'm going to look into getting my PhD probably in like urban studies. And then in order to be a registered architect, you have to have a master's or a bachelor's of architecture. Mine is a bachelor's of science in architecture.
Okay.
And just because I like to do milestones, there's only 500 Black women in the United States that are registered architects.
Really?
So yes, there are very, very few.
Through your whole education, have you ever had mentors or still do?
I would probably say yes, but they've all been for many different reasons. I would say people influenced me in their life. I would say to start, I took after my mother and my father. My mother was a teacher. My father was a civil engineer, worked in construction. So I kind of took from both of them. My father actually told me to be an architect, and neither one of them are no longer here, but I just remember both my professions just talking to them about it. But in school and in work, I would say at Kent State, I had a favorite professor in history, and I always looked up to him. His name was Dr. Hudson, and I was like, I just want to write a book one day. And he had written books, and I just thought that's just great. And it just amazed me how much knowledge he just knew and could give a lecture without looking at notes. And then in my career, I would say my current supervisor, Alicia Booker, she's always been very very supportive. And she told me when she first started at Tri-C, she was like, you need to have like a plan. Like, what is your 5-year plan? Like, what are you going to do? I did our Mandel Leadership Program. Claire Rosacco, who's our VP of Government Affairs, she was my mentor. So I would say over the years, I've had people from different spaces that have encouraged me or given me things to think about in either education or my career.
You say you want to start writing books?
Well, that's like, you have a bucket list.
Right.
So that's one of my bucket lists,
Do you have
to
any
write a book.
ideas of what you want to write about yet?
Yes. So I'm very focused on the community. In my current role at Tri-C, I try to help more so underrepresented populations and women. I think a lot of time with underrepresented populations, they don't have the same opportunities. And then women, I feel like sometimes we go into the workforce and we're not seeing the same, even if we're at the same level with education and different things like that. So looking at how we can advance that. And one of the other things that I have done is looked at the Cleveland. I one time started writing about my family and their great migration to Cleveland from the South. I always tell people nobody ever realizes how old I am. My oldest son is 26. My grandparents were born in like 1919, 1912. So coming here and just how like middle class Black have evolved over time in Cleveland. So looking kind of at that.
So looking back at your 8, 9, 10-year-old self, What advice would you give
Mhm.
yourself about STEM now?
I would probably say looking at my 8, 9, 10, at the age of 8, 9, or 10,
Yeah.
what would I say about STEM? I would probably tell myself to be more focused in math. I actually love math, but it wasn't until I was in high school. In elementary and middle school, I was like, I really didn't care. But as I got older, I probably would tell myself, focus more on math, but because it will definitely get you to where you want to go. And I would tell myself that I could combine my creativeness and my science and mathematics together to have a really good, successful career. That's what I would tell myself.
Okay, then kind of a similar question. Our audience is mainly K through 12. So in your position, you
For
are
what I do? Oh,
for STEM.
okay. Sorry.
From your position now,
Okay.
what advice would you give students K through 12 about STEM?
So I also run summer camps as well, and I speak a lot to schools. And when I talk to them, the first thing I always say to students is everybody likes stuff. And they kind of just look at me and I'm like, everybody likes stuff. And I said, someone has to make it. So regardless if you're standing on a manufacturing floor or if you're an engineer, like you can take like your science, the math that you're learning, those are all things that you would need to do to actually pay attention to go on and be in a field where you would actually be able to, for example, you might be the next designer of the latest iPhone, or you might be the next person who comes up with this really great type of computer, or the next PlayStation. Now instead of just PlayStation and Xbox, you come up with something great. And I just try to let students know that there's going into these types of field doesn't have to seem so, what's the word? It doesn't have to seem so, I think intimidating. The education doesn't have to be so intimidating for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. When I was in high school, we had STEM events, and it was like a week, and that's all we got was just that 1 week. I like nowadays, I'm not sure what they do in schools, but I would have loved to be like actually learn about STEM more than a week, because maybe I would have changed my major if I knew more about STEM.
So, and I think that's it. But now within schools, I see a lot of schools who get grants or they get dollars to buy like 3D printers or things like that. And sometimes they don't always know how to use the technology. So sometimes where I can help, I will try to make an effort. But I think learning what's really going to be important in the future is in schools, if they learn how to incorporate the different type of technologies for real world application. So for example, just to download something in 3D print is like, that's great. Like you printed something, but at the end of the day, that thing is probably going in the garbage because it's just this random thing. I mean, it is, it's going in the garbage.
No, I agree with you.
So when you really think about it, like what can I teach these students to make or build to do that? And I think there's steps. There are steps in that. So, all of our students that come through our summer camp, they build something, they make something. We even do a summer camp called molecular gastronomy. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
It's a science of cooking. So they cook with chemicals, but we take real food dishes that you would actually eat. So we'll make guacamole. Like we'll have our Mexican day. We'll do guacamole, taco, or something like that, inspired. But the guacamole is made with lime foam instead of lime juice. Or we have them make little pearls that go into, like, we'll do faux cocktails. What is it called? They don't really have alcohol, like faux, whatever it's called. So obviously they're kids, so they'll do like Shirley Temples, but instead of doing like the grenadine, we'll teach them how to mix together certain things to make little like droplets of the cherry grenadine. So looking at how you can take these things and incorporate them into something really fun. So that really doesn't sound like it, but you have to measure. So you're doing math. Like
Right.
you have to say a really hard word. So it's like science, and this is how this chemical makes this work. So I think that's really important when we look at students, is how can we take this technology and incorporate it into something that's kind of fun and they're learning.
Imagine the kids going home to their parents like, I want to do this. We did it today, but I want to do it this way. And the parents are just like, that'd be a fun conversation. But no, that's
we
really
have
interesting. I think I would like that.
we have kids. So because of COVID, we had to do some of this stuff at home.
Mhm.
So like they all, before COVID and now, they all get a kit. So the kids could go home and make this stuff with their families.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we would have a lunch at the end when we had them in person, and the families could come and the kids would make them food and like serve them, have lunch with them.
That's so cool. All right,
So,
Matt.
yeah, so I think that's it. Yeah, how we get to K through 12. Mm-hmm.
So my last question for you, besides the acronym, what does STEM mean to you?
STEM means, so when I think of STEM, it means everything to me. Sometimes people try to limit it and put it in this little box and say it only applies to like engineering. It only applies to people who are in any type of field that requires a lot of math or science. And that's not necessarily true. Like the example I just gave of the molecular gastronomy. What about a chef who wants to do something like that? Or what about a person who's into art but wants to do it a different way? They want to 3D print their art. What about those type of things? So for me, STEM just means that we are looking at how we collaborate multiple different subjects and how those all work together and how we integrate them. So it's not about one thing, one area. It's about how we take everything that we do. Because at this point, what isn't run by a computer? I mean,
Right.
what you think of all the apps you have on your phone, call your house, close your windows. I mean, what can't you do? So everything is like STEM related now.
Yeah, think about it, it really is. I never thought about it that way. Like the apps on
I
your
mean,
phone, the smart homes.
yeah.
Never
And you have
thought.
to also, even still, like we have some summer camps where students may build furniture. But as part of that, like we may use, instead of using a stall, like maybe we'll use a router and they have to design something. Like when we do our guitar camp, they would have to cut out part of the head, but they have to use CAD software to actually personalize it. Or if we built like a step stool, they have to engrave it. So they have to learn how to use different software. So that's why I said STEM is everything around us.